you so much. Welcome to number 28 of More Up North. It's going to be a great evening. We're going to talk to a couple of military veterans about our national security and how that goes with climate change and a climate bill. I know. If your head's exploding, just stay tuned. Also, we have a great panel of some of my friends to talk about all kinds of stuff. So we'll be right back with More Up North. Stop it! Stop it some more. No, I can tell you I'm really glad to be back with the live show this week. This is our 28th episode, and I'm thrilled that you're joining us for More Up North. I have to say that this week I had several guests on my radio program, and I begged them to stay in town for a little bit longer to talk to all of us statewide. Retired Lieutenant General John Castellaw is here, honorably served the United States military over the course of 4 decades. Can you believe it? Look at him. 4 decades. He started when he was 7. He served as Deputy Commander of the Marine Pacific Forces under the 9/11 attacks, at which time he assumed duties as Deputy Commander, Marine Forces at U.S. Central Command. He was selected as Major General in 2002. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here.
And Robin Eckstein is here. She's a 7-year Army veteran who deployed to Iraq in 2003 with the 123rd Main Support Battalion of the 1st Armored Division. While in Iraq, she drove supply convoys in Baghdad and the surrounding area. How's the road rage with that? Are you just like, hey, move your camel? How's that go?
Actually, you're allowed to pretty much hit anything, so you don't have to worry. It's coming back to the United States and not hitting everything that takes a little bit to readjust to.
Or being careful. Both of you are here, and you're traveling around the country, talking about the climate bill, how it applies to the military, how it applies to our country. Can you just give us some basics on what you're doing and what you're talking about and who you're talking to specifically? Either one of you.
Sure. Well, we're with this group called Operation Free. And Operation Free is a coalition of veterans and national security organizations. We've been traveling the country since last October, educating people on the connection between our energy policy, climate change, and national security, which obviously not everyone understands. And the reason why we have veterans on this tour, like myself and John, is because we really get it. We've seen firsthand how the military is impacted by our energy policy, and we want to see change.
John, do you want to add to that?
Well, Robin always says it so very well. I think those of us that have served our great nation want to keep serving. We recognize that this is a threat to our national security, the dual issues of dependence on a single source of energy, and also the impact on those that are going to follow us in the military from climate change being an accelerator of conflict. So that makes it really easy for us to be involved in this and to feel that it's an important area for us to continue to advocate in.
Well, we hear a lot about, we have Don Young as our representative. You're going to need to talk to other people in Washington, obviously, to get this climate bill passed. The same people that seem to always be the first to say support the troops and to ask them to go into harm's way are also the same people that say there is no climate change, and if you think so, then you either hate Jesus or hug trees or both. How do you talk to someone who's a climate change denier and say, no, this is important, we're seeing this? What's the military stance on this?
Well, I think, we represent, the thoughts of the Department of Defense, and they clearly have got the best interests of the security of our nation and of those in the military that serve it. And they very clearly and very forcefully have identified these issues and are charting ways to combat them, to reduce our dependence on a single source and to lower the military's carbon boot print, instead of a footprint. But clearly, I think this is a great country. People support the military. I came in during the Vietnam era, and at that time there was not this support. Today there is such a broad base of support for the military, and it's really something that's good to see. My greatest fear when I got out after my 4 decades was that I would be back to the same situation we were at the end of Vietnam, and it wasn't that way.
I'm glad.
Me too.
Those are days we just don't need to visit.
No.
Again. Go ahead.
And I think too, I mean, that's what the big part of this whole tour has been about, is educating people on the fact that the military does take this seriously.
By this you mean climate change?
But climate change, definitely. Recently the Quadrennial Defense Review came out in last February, and that's the DoD and the Pentagon Strategic Plan for the Future. It actually spans 2 presidents, and it includes Bush, and 2 Secretary of Defenses, and it specifically lists climate change in there as an accelerant to the instability in regions around the world. So what we're going to be seeing as the 911 for the world, the U.S. military, is we're going to be going into these regions because they're destabilized because of drought, famine, flood. We're going to go in there and we're going to have to, stabilize them, because otherwise they become breeding grounds for terrorists. And so the military has realized this, that if they can, mitigate some of these conflicts of the future, it's going to make us safer as a country. Because we know, unfortunately, that war happens, that, conflict happens. And if we can mitigate some of those, it's going to be easier on us in the long run. And that's why they're reducing their carbon footprint, their boot print, and they're moving towards clean, renewable energy. Because, like you said, I mean, the Pentagon and the DoD, they're not known for hugging trees and saving polar bears. So if somebody wants to deny climate change, I tell them to, listen to my chain of command, because they're saying it's real. And that's what's important.
It's really interesting to me to be able to talk to you, because this goes against, this answers the questions of the other side. It seems that there's got to be a way to bring people together to see that, if there's, when there's climate change that happens and there's poverty and drought and people don't have food, there's an obvious instability that goes with that. Yeah. So the fact that would be a priority for the United States to fight against is amazing. Right now, the Department of Defense is a huge consumer of fuel. My understanding is the largest consumer of fossil fuels.
It's the largest consumer in the U.S. government, yes, of all the government agencies. The Department of Defense is, sure.
Right, and I had several people email me an article that there has been a solar plane that has flown around the world now. I'm not getting on it, ever. I understand thrust enough to know that you want all of that behind you. You had told me earlier that it's exorbitantly expensive for the U.S. military to get fuel to where we need to get it. Can you talk about that? Because I know if I say it, people are going to be like, yeah, right. But you've got the stars and bars to back this up.
Well, I think, the military, we have a saying, the full cost burden. And when you talk about that, you're talking about the transportation cost, the cost of guarding it. So let's just take a gallon of gas that comes into a port in Pakistan. You have to dock the ship, get it off the ship. You have to put it in tanker trucks, take it up to the Khyber Pass, get it into Afghanistan, get it into a fuel depot somewhere in Afghanistan, and then you have to distribute it throughout the country.
All the while trying not to be blown up.
And what the cost of transporting, securing, distributing and all, when you put that fully burdened cost together, it's about $400 a gallon to get that fuel to where the fighter needs it.
$400 a gallon. Thanks. I needed the hand signals on that one. No, because that's outrageous. But we're paying that hand over fist. And so when this isn't just about the environment, and it's not just about climate change, if you don't get people to that point, then you could say, okay, you don't like the deficit? You know, you're out there teabagging on the park strip saying, you know, you don't want this deficit. Okay, here's yet another reason for us to be passing a climate change bill.
Yes, but again, this is a part that where we're trying to reduce our dependence. And you know, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, Jim Conway, is a tall guy from Arkansas. Certainly one that you might not expect to understand this, but he gets it very definitely, and he has created within the Marine Corps, you know, a group that is looking closely at how we can reduce the cost, you know, of getting that gallon of gas to that forward operating base, using alternative fuels, biodiesel.